Hello YouTube, my name is Alston and I make YouTube videos for people that are just getting started with passive income, affiliate marketing, and making money online. Today I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about web hosting and blogging. What type of web hosting you need for beginner blogging, doesn't matter, domain name registration, all of that good stuff for you right now. Before we get started, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification if this video or any other video on this channel has helped you in any way. Let's get started. As a blogger, you will need web hosting eventually. I recommend starting out with your own blog site. You can start off with a free one and transfer it later. There are some implications and some issues with that, but definitely eventually, if you are serious about blogging and making money online and affiliate marketing, you're going to need your own hosted site. So what is web hosting? The easiest way to define web hosting for a non-technical person is a space on a hard drive on the internet where you store your files for your website, your blog, your pictures, your video, any type of data that you want on the internet on your site is in a hosted hard drive. That's a very basic surface level definition. In reality, web hosting can be on a physical server, which is a type of hard drive, or it can be what's called cloud hosting. For the purposes of a beginner blogger, it doesn't really matter. Just know that when it comes to web hosting, your files are stored online for access from anyone around the world. Before we get going, I do want to provide a full disclosure and let you know that I do have a hosting company of my own, but the information that I'm going to provide actually applies to any website hosting company, or any hosting company in general. So, does web hosting size matter? When you first start off with your blog, I recommend using a big name hosting company. There are tons of them out there like Bluehost, HostGator, GoDaddy. There are tons of big name hosting companies out there. The reason why you want to go with a large hosting company is because in most cases, larger hosting companies take care of all of the background work for you. They'll set up your domain name. They'll link your domain name to your hosting. They'll do all of the little things. They'll give you a cPanel. They'll do all the little things so that you can focus on what's most important, and that's blogging. As you gain more experience, you can start looking at other things like VPS, dedicated server, and things of that nature. But when you're just getting started, you want to go with a big name, large corporation, because they're familiar. They'll usually offer the most competitive prices to start. And that goes for both the hosting and the domain name registration. Speaking of domain name registration, what does that mean? Basically, a domain name is the name, the human readable name that is associated with your website. For example, the domain name for this website is alstongodbolt.com. The domain name is only for humans. Computers communicate to each other with a series of numbers and periods. The reason why we have domain names is so that we can remember where to go on the internet. For example, you'll remember alstongodbolt.com, but you won't remember 168-132-161.1.1. You won't remember that, but you'll remember alstongodbolt.com pretty easily. How do I find a domain name? That's a pretty common question with new bloggers. There are a number of ways that you can do that. The most common and probably the easiest way to find a domain name is to go to this website, instantdomainsearch.com. Now, one question that always comes up is, does my domain name have to be in my niche? Yes and no. Yes, you want to try and make it close or relevant to your niche, so it's more identifiable to your potential customers, but in reality, it doesn't matter. One example is I stumbled across a YouTube video where the owners, they created a name called avocado. Avocado isn't a word. They used that as their domain name and they gained immense popularity. There are countless examples on the internet where the domain name doesn't really mean anything until they made it mean something. So let's find a domain name. Let's say our niche is in yoga. All we need to do is type in yoga, and we'll see that it's already taken. The cool thing about this website, instantdomainsearch.com, is it offers a number of suggestions. A rule of thumb, but not a hard fast rule, you want to make sure that you use .com because that is more identifiable with trust and consistency than .blog or .business or .club. So if yoga doesn't work, you might want to try yoga, let's say, for you. That is already taken. Let's say yoga for a senior. Okay, yoga for SR. If you are creating a blog or a niche blog about yoga for senior citizens or yoga for senior in high school, this quite possibly could be an opportunity. So then what you would do is you would go back to your hosting company, or you could go through like a third party like namecheap.com, and you would purchase your domain name. And so usually with larger brands like Bluehost, and I am an affiliate for Bluehost, with larger brands like Bluehost is they'll actually package everything in one. They'll let you actually go through the process of selecting your domain name and selecting your hosting all at the same time, so that it's easy, it's streamlined, and they get paid for both things. All right, so here I am on Bluehost website, and as I mentioned, I am an affiliate for Bluehost. So the question is, what hosting size do I need? In the beginning, you do not need a large amount of space. As you can see here, Bluehost has a number of different options for you. If you are planning on launching multiple blogs, you might want to start with a Plus or Choice Plus. But for the most part, what you can always do is you can start off with the smallest one and then upgrade over time. Because your blog is so small and you probably won't receive a lot of traffic, having the smallest plan won't have any adverse effect on you. Now, as your blog grows and your web traffic grows, you're going to want a larger amount of bandwidth. You'll want to make sure that you have a larger amount of storage. You also want to make sure that you have what's called a SSL. The SSL, and this is a good example, the SSL is important because it affects your ranking in the search results, and it also will show up in your web page here. So if you look in the top left-hand corner, my site is deemed not secure because I don't have the SSL certificate. Now, there are easy ways for someone to get the SSL certificate, but the SSL is important because it becomes an issue with payments and payment processing and show in search results on Google. So you want to make sure with whatever domain hosting company that you choose, they offer a free SSL. Now, one interesting thing about web hosting is there are actually different types of web hosting based on your needs. All of these options are what's called shared hosting. And basically what that means is your website or websites is going to be shared on the same server or same hard drive space as other websites that are out there. This becomes an issue when a website that's also on your server or hard drive is receiving a lot of traffic or is in general taking up a lot of space. They're maybe using a lot of inbound and outbound bandwidth. That can have an impact on your page speed and your load times and when people come to you and when traffic comes and leaves your website. So to start off, it's quite okay to use shared hosting. But again, as your website grows, you may want to look into other options like a dedicated server, a virtual private server. Some of those things will help you with page speed and allow your website to grow and handle hundreds of thousands of visitors per month. So another question that also pops up is, can I start blogging for free? There are a few different websites out there that will allow you to blog for free. There are other problems that you need to consider. Because you're using someone else's platform, that platform comes with additional rules. You may not be able to use affiliate marketing. You may have a hard cap as to the amount of bandwidth you're able to consume per day, month, or year. You could lose your platform or your website at any time, all because you don't own that platform. You're borrowing it or using it for someone else. So as soon as you can afford, I would recommend getting to your own hosting, because your own hosting means your own platform. All right. Also, as I mentioned, there are different types of hosting plans. There's shared hosting, there's cloud hosting, there's dedicated hosting or dedicated server, there's managed WordPress hosting, and there's VPS hosting. Shared hosting is on the lower end, and VPS is on the higher end with regard to cost, usage, functionality, the amount of traffic that you can handle. As I mentioned, with shared hosting, you are sharing a hard drive or a server space with possibly hundreds of other websites. This can also present a problem when it comes to security. If one of the other sites gets a virus or an infection, it's very possible that that virus or infection could infect the entire server. Now, let me caution you and say that doesn't happen often. That only happens when you are dealing with a hosting company that is not up to date or doesn't really care about their server or data management. One final hosting type I failed to mention is reseller hosting. So with reseller hosting, you could actually host your website on a server and then actually sell pieces of your space on the internet, your hard drive space, to other people. That way you could actually make your website free. And there's another way to monetize your blog. That's something to consider later on down the road. There are tons of companies, including Bluehost, that offer reseller plans. That's usually a bit more expensive, but that's something to also consider down the road. So cloud hosting basically is a version of shared hosting, but the storage is quote unquote in the cloud. Basically what that means is in most cases, the storage is held off-site at a location that is dedicated to just servers and hard drives. When you see shared hosting, unless it states it, usually it's like a physical on-site hard drive. Cloud hosting usually just means it's managed by a third party and it's quote-unquote in the cloud. Dedicated hosting usually means you have your own server or you have your own dedicated space on a server. You're not sharing a certain amount of bandwidth. You are sharing a server itself, but you have your own space on that server. Managed WordPress basically means that the hosting company manages all of the outside things with regard to the WordPress site. You basically just manage the WordPress, so you manage the plugins, making sure it stays up to date, but the company takes care of just about everything else. And then VPS, which stands for Virtual Private Server. Basically what this means is you have access to your own server, your own hard drive, where you have the ability to make changes. You can change the configurations. This is usually for people that are have a lot of monthly visitors, or people that are a little bit more technical in nature and like that control. The cool thing about servers is you can actually get in at the server or ground level to make changes and have an impact on the amount of on the page speed, on the loading times, and some of those other things. Another thing to consider when it comes to web hosting is something called a content delivery network. Basically what a content delivery network is, your website is cached at different places around the world so that if someone accesses it from that location, they receive it faster. If at all possible, you want to find a free content delivery network, and if your website gets big enough, you may want to pay for a content delivery network, or CDN. Currently, Cloudflare offers a free CDN. Work with your web hosting provider to get that set up. So to go back to one of the original questions, does web hosting type matter? In the beginning, no, it doesn't. What I would recommend is looking for a web host based on the cost that you can afford, the number of websites that you're planning to build, and the name recognition of the company. As I've mentioned a few different times, you can look at places like Bluehost, HostGator, GoDaddy, some of the big ones, some of the ones that you are more familiar with and you see commercials for. Next question is, can I change hosts? Yes, you can actually change web hosts at just about any time. You can change your domain name registrar, but that's a little bit more technical. But in reality, you can change your web host at any time. Changing your web host is as simple as moving your files from GoDaddy to Bluehost or Bluehost to HostGator. Most hosting companies will assist you with that process. They may not actually do it for you, but they'll walk you through the steps of switching company. That leads me to the next question. When should I consider changing hosts? Only change hosts when your website gets too big, you're no longer satisfied with the customer service, or the pricing is too outrageous. Those are really the only 3 times where you should consider changing the host. Changing the host can have an impact on your page speed. It can have a temporary impact on your search engine results, and it actually can bring down your website for a short period of time. How much should you expect to pay for hosting? As I mentioned earlier, you probably can spend, actually there's some pricing right here, $3.95 a month. Most hosting companies will do $3.95 a month for the first year, and then it goes up. So what, $4 times 12 is, $60, $60 a month for the first year, and then it'll go up to $7.99. So in the beginning, you probably spend less than $100 on both hosting and a domain name. You can actually purchase your web hosting in monthly, yearly, bi-yearly, or tri-yearly increments. Most hosting companies will offer you a greater discount the longer you sign up with them. One thing to note, you do need to pay for your domain name every year. So whatever it costs to purchase that domain name, maybe $16.95, you'll have to pay that cost every single year. So here's some things that you need to consider when you're looking at a web host. The authority, so how big or how large, the name recognition of the website, the allotted size. Here, as you can see, all of the higher plans are unlimited SSD storage. The SSD storage type is important because SSD is going to be faster than a standard hard drive. The number of websites that you can host for the price, SSL certificate, something called a cPanel, or a place for you to manage files, and then how you feel about the company. If you've seen positive reviews about HostGator or GoDaddy or some of the other ones, then go with that. No hosting platform is going to be perfect, but you want to make sure that you at least feel comfortable with the company you're doing business with. So comment below if you agree, disagree, if I missed anything about the hosting companies. Definitely leave a comment below. Make sure that you like, subscribe, hit the bell notification. Also, click the link below. Entering your email address will give you a free PDF guide on how to start affiliate marketing the right way. Basically, there are a number of questions that I provide on this guide to help you make the best decisions to start your blog and your affiliate marketing business. Before I let you go, make sure that you like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and comment if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or you disagree with anything that I've said today. Once again, this is Alston. Thanks for watching, and we will see you soon.